Alrighty, friends, we are now up and rolling. So today's lesson on psychology is going to be week 3 of our 4-part series of discipline. And the first week we talked about understanding the foundations of discipline. Second week, or last week, we talked about techniques for building discipline. And this week we're going to be talking about discipline in overcoming psychological challenges. We're going to have 2 parts to this concise lesson today. Part 1 is going to be discipline in managing stress, anxiety, and procrastination. And part 2 is going to be strategies to stay disciplined during tough times. So pretty straightforward, guys. I mean, hopefully the goal, I should say, of all these lessons is to provide you guys with actionable, low cost or no cost tools that you guys can use to improve not only your trading in real time, like immediately, and also throughout the rest of your life as well. So that's the goal here. I won't take up too much of your time. I'm going to shoot for 30 minutes or so today, maybe a little quicker, maybe a little longer, depending on if we have any questions in the chat. And if you do have questions, please feel free to stop me at any time to elaborate or to go on a sidebar or whatever it might be. So before we get started, let's all take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, friends. Whatever you're going through, I promise you will be stronger on the other side of it. What's going on, man? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I need to get a haircut. That's what I need to do. I need to find a barber, though. I just moved to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Football games are crazy, but I don't know about the barbers out here. We will hopefully find one soon. So let's jump into it, folks. Part 1 in our 2-part of our lesson today, I should say. Discipline in managing stress, anxiety, and procrastination. And my first bullet point here is managing stress. So if you guys don't know who Dr. Andrew Huberman is, I pull a lot of information from him. He's a neurobiologist and scientist at Stanford School of Medicine. He's also a teacher there. He's also an ophthalmologist. He has a really popular podcast where he tries to give everybody really good tools and information for science-based information on improving your overall health, including mental, physical, and sometimes he even talks about spiritual health as well. So I pull a lot of stuff from him because he is more validated, more educated than I am. So I guess that's what most people do, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants. So I'm starting today's lesson off with a quote from him. Stress is inevitable, but how you respond to it makes the difference. So I think we all know, especially that first part, stress is inevitable. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, or you don't know how you're going to pay your rent this week, or maybe even get food on the table tonight. So stress will come. It's not about the stress that comes, it's about how we respond to it that makes the biggest difference when talking about our overall health. So today's lesson, we're talking about psychology, but I want to preface this discussion with the understanding that overall health and wellness is not just about our mental health, but also our physical and spiritual as well. So let's move forward. Discipline creates a structure that allows you to manage stress by building routines that reduce uncertainty. For example, consistent physical activity, a regular sleep schedule, and mindful breathing practices help mitigate the stress response, the body's stress response, rather. And I have a quick point on that. And if you guys, again, at any point need me to repeat something or just dive into it a little bit more, please feel free to stop me at any time. It also takes the mental energy out of the equation. This is talking about building routines and habits. It takes the mental energy out of the equation. Once you build those good habits, you no longer have to expend your mental energy on when you're going to the gym or what you're going to eat today. So I know that sounds like pretty minuscule things, like what time you're going to go to the gym or when you're going to eat. But when we're talking about trying to build consistency through discipline, we have to think about what we do every day as a capacity. We can only do so much. We only have so much fuel, mental energy, physical energy, whatever you want to call it, to perform tasks. So the more energy we take up thinking about doing the task or getting prepped for the task, the more likely we are to never get to the task. And I think we all know that at a certain level in all of us, when you don't have a routine or a habit in place and you're like, okay, this week I'm going to go to the gym. And that's the extent of your schedule, your habit when trying to form one. And then life gets in the way inevitably, and you don't end up going to the gym. What these habits and structures that you form in your life do is eliminate the energy that you're expending for whatever that might be. So if you're planning on going to the gym or want to eat healthier, make a habit of going to the gym at this time. Take the time block out, like we talked about last week, creating time blocks. Take out an hour of your day. Say, I'm going to shoot for here. If I can't do it here, I'm going to shoot for 6 p.m. or whatever it might be. So all that is to say that creating these routines to help with your consistency is super important to reduce mental fatigue, which overall it helps reduce that overwhelming feeling and anxiety that we may get when we load our plate up. So moving on to a practical tip. Develop a daily routine that includes stress relief techniques like exercise or meditation to help control cortisol levels and maintain emotional balance. We talked about this before. A really good tool to immediately reduce stress is a physiological sigh. One long inhale through the nose, one more sharp inhale through the nose again to fully inflate the lungs, and then a long exhale through the mouth to fully empty the lungs. That's a really good real-time way to reduce cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine in your bloodstream, and you will feel better, trust me. And also, it helps reduce those stress hormones in your blood throughout the day. So I highly recommend physiological sigh or other breathing techniques, as well as exercise and meditation. And you can also read your book if that's your thing to reduce stress, or go hang out with family with your phone on silent or whatever it might be for you. But implementing stress reduction into your daily life is super important for your overall health and to help with your discipline. So we just went over managing stress. If you guys have questions, please shoot it out in the chat. The next bullet point I have under managing stress, anxiety, and procrastination is controlling anxiety. So discipline is essential in managing anxiety by creating predictability in your daily life. When you have clear goals and a structured routine, it reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed and uncertain, which can often exacerbate anxiety. So just like we talked about with stress, when you form these habits and disciplines in your life, that energy that you're expending thinking about what you're going to do instead of just executing is eliminated. So I highly encourage you guys, if you are struggling with something, anxiety or stress, which I think to a certain extent we all are, implement things in your life to help reduce that. It's pretty straightforward. The equation, it's what you input is what you're going to get on the output side of things. So try to structure things in your life to help reduce stress and anxiety. And a really easy way to do that is just to time block things out in your schedule that you want to complete. So instead of thinking, man, I have to go shopping, go to the gym, cook this meal, get the kids ready for school, pick up the kids. Well, if instead of thinking about all these things you have to do, and then, and I have to go to work and I have to figure this out and I have to mail out this return, okay, do a physiological sigh, take a deep breath, look at what you need to do. What are the priorities? And then time block those things out. It's very straightforward, though unfortunately not many of us do that. Say, I'm going to take 30 minutes for this activity, 30 minutes for this activity, and 30 minutes for this activity. This one's going to take an hour. This one's going to take 5 minutes. As as soon as you start time blocking those things out and getting into a routine of how to efficiently do those, all that built up anxiety and stress starts to fade away surrounding those daily activities. You no longer have to think about them because you know when you're going to do them and how you're going to do them. So it's much easier to perform those tasks and move on to what your higher goals are, like trading. If that's one of your priorities you want to get better at, instead of throwing it on this to-do list, put it in a time block. Say I'm going to take 30 minutes a day to study my charts, or to watch a YouTube video from Jojo or John or ICT or whomever you may be watching. Doing this, I promise you, will help with the feeling of being overwhelmed or anxious. So that's practical stuff here, guys. Actionable tools to help you reduce anxiety and stress. So I think I already went over this. I have one more point in there. Use disciplined time management techniques such as time blocking to prevent anxiety from spiraling when you're faced with multiple tasks. Yep, already went over that. So my last bullet point on managing stress, anxiety, and procrastination is overcoming procrastination. I pulled a quote from James Clear. If you guys don't know, he is the author of Atomic Habits. Highly, highly recommend that book. It helped me change the way I form new habits and I break old habits. I go back to that book for reference on quite a few things in my life. So James Clear said, "The cost of procrastination is the life you could have lived." It's a pretty heavy quote, and we all know it's true. I'll say that one more time. The cost of procrastination is a life you could have lived. It's pretty deep. Discipline helps fight procrastination by breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps and fostering a mindset of consistent progress over perfection. Excuse me. I have a little frog in my throat. What's up, JVR? How are we doing? I'll say that last point one more time. Discipline helps fight procrastination by breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps and fostering a mindset of consistent progress over perfection. That last part is super important. Consistency over perfection. When we're talking about discipline and creating a routine, a healthier lifestyle for yourself and for your future family or your current family, what matters is consistency, not perfection. And for me, that took a long time to realize. When I would go set out myself to do a task, for so often it has to be perfect. And to an extent, I think you should be proud of the output you are putting out. So if you are doing a task that you are not proud of at the end of it, I don't know if maybe you should take some more time on the development of that to produce it. And you can apply that to multiple things. And I'm not saying like on an instrument, like when you're learning an instrument, if you're trying to play the tenor sax, what happens when you pick it up for the very first time? It is going to sound like shit. That is a non-negotiable. It's going to happen. I'm not saying you have to be proud of what the instrument sounds like. You should be proud of your output in that scenario. So if it is, in this instant, playing an instrument, you should be proud of the focus and attention you put towards that instrument for the 30 minutes you were trying. So with that being said, I'm not saying like the output of that has to be perfect and you should be proud of it. What I'm saying is your effort is what matters. And that consistency over time is what's going to matter over the perfection of really trying to hit that note. Or maybe just practice that note over and over and over again consistently, and you will get better over time. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I didn't say that in the most articulate and graceful way, but hopefully I got that point across. Consistency over perfection every single time. So a practical tip in overcoming procrastination is using the 2-minute rule. So if you have a task that takes less than 2 minutes on your to-do list, do it immediately. Get it done with, finish it. This helps build momentum and reduces the temptation to procrastinate. Momentum is hugely important for our day-to-day activities. And that's why I start my days every single day with 3 wins. I wake up. Good. Thank God. That's a win for me. But I sit up in my bed. I drink 16 ounces of water. So there's my goal number one, or my win, I should say. Then I make my bed. That's number two. And then I go and I open up my blinds, and my blinds in my bedroom are facing east. So I have the sunrise right in front of me, and I'm getting a little bit of my morning sunlight. I do go outside after that to get the rest of my morning sunlight, but those are three easy wins for me in the morning to set myself up for continued momentum and success in my daily life. I think most of it's pretty intuitive. Most of us know that if you start out and have a bad morning, it is often much more difficult to have a good rest of the day. We know that. But knowing tools like how, if you force yourself to smile, the chemicals in your brain from that physical response will make you feel better. That is now scientifically proven. So knowing tips like that, knowing like getting your sleep right will help with focus and overall mood as well. And setting yourself up with momentum in the morning through these small wins will also help you massively. So when it comes to overcoming, when it comes to overcoming procrastination, this stuff also matters. That momentum really does help. And I think we all know that to a certain extent, to where if you have a thousand things on your to-do list, yet you haven't started any of it, it is so easy to continue to procrastinate and not do any of it. But if you can look through that task list and see a couple tasks that will take less than 2 minutes and you do them right away, it is so much easier to continue that momentum into the bigger tasks. And then also using tools like time blocking for those bigger tasks will help continue the momentum down the road. This stuff's important, guys. This stuff really helps. And I'm not speaking from textbooks here. I'm speaking from experience. I've taken a lot of these tools from Andrew Huberman and James Clear and others. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. But I took these tools and David Goggins' book, You Can't Hurt Me. All of these things I've applied to my life, and some of them you got to sift through the junk that doesn't really apply to you and find the gold nuggets. But there's a lot of gold nuggets in these techniques that help you form a healthier lifestyle, a lifestyle that you want to live. So I highly encourage you guys to use some of these tools for managing stress, controlling anxiety, and overcoming procrastination. So that was part one. That was discipline in managing stress, anxiety, and procrastination. So part two of today's lesson is strategies to stay disciplined during tough times. And I think most of us can relate this directly to our trading careers. When we blow our fourth or fifth account for the month, or we have been doing consistent for the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden everything goes to shite and you just blew your account or your live account, whatever it might be. That stuff hurts. Those are tough times in the trading market. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But again, all these lessons are made to not only be applied to your trading career, but also your life as a whole. So I have 3 bullet points in this section: micro goals, stress management techniques, a little bit about what we talked earlier, and building emotional resilience, all to stay disciplined during tough times. So micro goals. When overwhelmed, break your tasks. Pardon me. One moment. Okay. Micro goals. When overwhelmed, break your tasks into tiny, manageable goals. Completing small steps can help you stay disciplined even when the big picture feels daunting. I always go back to the metaphor of how are you going to climb a mountain? Well, one step at a time. So oftentimes our life, and again, this is speaking from experience here, we have daunting times ahead of us. Regardless of where you are at in life right now, if everything is feel good and perfect, I'm super happy for you, but know that daunting times are ahead of you and they will come. So instead of looking at the entire mountain, say, hey, can I see, or the massive forest in front of you, and you can't even see the trees through the forest. You know how that goes. How do you get through that forest? Can you see your next step in front of you. Take that step. I know that's cliche, but it's oh so true to nearly every life experience. So when you're overwhelmed, I highly recommend setting these micro goals. And here's a going back to our old point on momentum. Start by setting a goal for just 5 minutes of any task, for the first 5 minutes of any task. So if you have a task that is, you're assuming it's going to take you 1 hour, set a goal for starting the first 5 minutes of that. So maybe if you are trying to write a paper, say, you know what, I'm going to come up with the articles that I'm going to research for that paper. And I'm also going to create the template for it, what font I'm going to use, whatever that is. That little bit of momentum to get you started will go miles because you are taking those first steps. The same way when we look at this big daunting mountain in front of us, how are we going to climb it? One step at a time. I know it's cliche. I love my cliche quotes. Next point is stress management techniques. So we're going back to our first point in managing stress, but these are some more practical techniques for us. So cold exposure is super beneficial. So if in life you have lately been dealing with quite a bit of stress, and it can be for very valid reasons. If your work is having layoffs right now, and you know if you get fired and you just had a baby and your wife isn't working at the time, or whatever it might be that you're facing in life, those are real stressors that will come in life. A really good way to help you maintain healthy and reduce stress in your life is cold exposure. I'll explain a little bit. So the benefits of cold exposure directly improve stress tolerance. And so this practice can train your nervous system to better handle stress. I have tons and tons of points on cold exposure and why it does what it does, but there's a part of your brain, let me think momentarily, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It's a part of your brain that physically grows when you do things that you do not want to do. But what does the anterior mid-cingulate cortex do? Well, it is in charge of dopamine distribution and a few other feel-good endorphins and hormones. But essentially, a lot of us think about dopamine as, from sex or food or whatever it is, this instant dopamine hits that we're getting. But dopamine is also in charge of long-term goals, of your willingness to succeed, essentially. And it also helps with mitigating stress in your life. So when you purposely put yourself in stressful situations like cold exposure, where your cortisol, your epinephrine, your norepinephrine spikes in your bloodstream, what you're doing, and because you do not want to do that, this mid-cingulate cortex in your brain is literally growing. It is a part of your brain that is in charge of this long-term goals, this dopamine distribution. It literally grows. So I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys, but when you introduce your body to deliberate cold exposure or deliberate stress, you are building your resilience to handle day-to-day stress. And all of a sudden, those, just like cold, I don't know if you guys have ever done cold plunges before, like in really cold water. When you get into that tub or that river or that lake, all of life's problems shrink away immediately. I could promise you that. When you get in really cold water and you're not used to it, oh my goodness, does everything else really fade away and you are only focused on what is happening in the present. It's pretty powerful. And now we know we have some really cool science to back that up as well, about how it helps us mitigate stress and manage stress better in the future. So all of that to say, in the morning, highly recommend, if you feel a little bit of chronic stress in your life right now, or you just want to optimize your ability to handle stress, try taking a cold shower in the morning and do it consistently. It's not going to be fun, but turn on that cold water, jump in there for a minute, 60 seconds to start, jump out and warm up, have your cup of hot Joe in the morning. You will, one, be awake and more alert, and focused, and dopamine goes up in your bloodstream after that. You want good cortisol and epinephrine in your bloodstream in the morning as well. It is awesome. Highly recommend it. Point number 2 with stress management techniques is breath work. So we've talked about the physiological side at depth. I'm not going to bore you guys too much, but using techniques like the physiological side can immediately reduce stress levels. And so in real time, it reduces stress, and it also reduces stress throughout the day, allowing you to maintain focus and discipline during challenging moments. So if you guys are struggling, maybe it's during a trade, maybe it's in traffic, maybe it's at work with something, if you want a real-time way to reduce these stress hormones in your blood and feel better in real time, try taking some deep breaths. I know we've heard so much about it. Yes, I know how to breathe, yada, yada, yada. Truly though, we now know by science, and we've known it for truly thousands of years, that when you breathe properly and doing things like the physiological sigh, your stress will go down in real time. So highly recommend cold exposure in the morning and breath work throughout the day. It will really, really help with stress management, and I'm speaking from experience here. Okay, our last point, thanks for bearing with me so far, is building emotional resilience. So in yesterday's class on wellness, we talked about journaling a little bit, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit more. So writing about your emotions and challenges helps process feelings and build discipline in emotional regulation. This is the study I referenced yesterday. Is they took a bunch of participants, they told them, hey, you're going to write about your most traumatic experience for 15 to 20 minutes in a secluded area, and you're going to do this for 5 to 7 days. And you would not believe how beneficial the results were for patients across the board who did this. Not only did they feel better about whatever experience they went through, they were now able to talk about it and share it freely without crying. And they were also able to, their overall health went up, like their immune system function went up. Pretty surprising, right? Mind, body, soul, all one. So I highly recommend journaling. And I know it for a lot of us who potentially grew up in a very old-fashioned household where you were never taught, but it was kind of referenced to stuff down those emotions, not talk about them and continue on, especially at men or for men. That's a very common thing, especially in the older generations. If you are able to journal those emotions down onto a piece of paper and whatever challenges you are going through, we now have hard scientific evidence that is telling us that you will be able to not only handle stress better, but your emotional regulation will be better, you will feel better, and your relationships will improve as a consequence to those things. So I know for a lot of us that sounds new agey. Some of us have never journaled in our life. Highly, highly recommend it. And truly, if you want to start with that experiment, it is, you can look it up really quickly, like journaling about traumatic events. I'm sure it will pop up on Google right away. Journaling about that most traumatizing experience in your life for 15 to 20 minutes may show really, really big improvements just by doing that. So my last point is gratitude practice. And this one was huge for me. So staying disciplined through gratitude, especially during hard times, helps shift focus from obstacles to positives, fostering emotional resilience. So this one was huge for me. I would say the biggest change I've had in my perspective over the last 3 years, or my overall life, came directly from gratitude practices. And so for me, it's praying throughout the day, especially at night. But it may, for you who may not be believers, if you just shift that mindset from why the F did that dude just cut me off to that person must really need to get going somewhere, I should give them some space and get off their butt. Stuff like that, that small shift in mental focus will help you tremendously. And again, this is speaking from experience. We have tons of clinical studies that also show how beneficial it is to shift that negative mindset to a positive mindset. And it doesn't only affect your mental health, but also your physical health. And I would go as far to say as your spiritual health as well. But this stuff for me truly has changed my life, like through and through. And I'm not saying I don't feel those emotions anymore when someone, excuse me, does something really dumb in traffic. Yes, I tend to get upset, but I often remind myself of how important it is to be grateful about your experiences and what you're going through, even if it is really hard. And I've found that I have been able to deal with some really, really difficult situations in my life in recent times with a smile on my face and optimism for the future because of that shift in mindset. So I highly encourage you guys to practice this stuff today. That's all I have for my written notes today on our week 3 discussion of discipline in overcoming psychological challenges. Hopefully you guys were able to gain some knowledge today. Maybe it's some reminders for you guys, but at the core of it, it is a lesson built to help people. So hopefully you gained some tools that you could go and improve your life immediately and your trading career. If you only want to apply it to that, you will also see residuals in your outside of that, in your broader life. So that's my goal here, is just trying to help you guys. And it helps me as well, doing this research and getting reminded about this stuff and pulling from books I've read and podcasts and people I admire. It's good for me as well. So I appreciate you guys being here and being an audience for me, and it's helped me a lot. And so I appreciate that. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. But if not, that's all I got for you today. Give you guys a couple seconds if you have anything for me. Well, good stuff. Awesome. Love you guys too. Appreciate the kind words. I really do. So this stuff is always recorded. I upload it to my YouTube channel, The Pursuit Crew HQ. I post it on Discord. If you guys missed some of it and want to reference back to it, what I would recommend, what I would do myself if I were in your shoes, if I missed a lesson, pull it up on YouTube when you're cooking or something, put it on 2x speed, run through it. When you hear something that catches your eye or your ear per se, slow it down to 1 speed, listen to it. Hopefully you'll gain some knowledge from that as well. So I appreciate you guys a ton. I really do. Go work out, go drink water, go tell your loved ones that you love them. That stuff all really, really matters. And you will thank your future self will thank you for doing the hard thing today. So I appreciate you guys a ton. Go do the hard thing, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.